The clerk will now proceed to read the orders of the day.
Animal Welfare, Import of Dogs, Cats and Ferrets Bill, second reading.
No. Right, I now call Sir Lane Saxby to move it.
I beg to move that the bill be now read a second time. Pets are a part of our family. They provide support and companionship when we need it most. And in time-honoured Friday tradition, I would like to name my own pets, from Perdita, my childhood cat, through Phoebe, adopted whilst I live in the States, my yellow Labradors, Harry and George, and my current much-adored Fox Red Labrador, Henry.
Has the Honourable Lady ever owned... Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Has the Honourable Lady ever owned a ferret? And what was that ferret's name?
It's an excellent intervention, and I will come on to ferrets, but unfortunately I haven't had the pleasure of one at home myself. The companionship from pets was certainly highly valued during the pandemic, where there was a surge in demand for puppies and kittens, which unfortunately led to even more upsetting cases of pet smuggling in the UK. During COVID, legal commercial imports of dogs rose by nearly 60% to over 70,000 dogs in 2021, and trends in illegal imports could be expected to be similar. As an MP, puppy and kitten smuggling was something that came on my radar shortly after the first lockdown began in March 2020. I myself was one of those people trying to find a new pup, which were hard to even find, and I'm grateful to my great dog-loving friend Bethany Sawyer for her advice to not see the cute puppy, which was the wrong age, without both parents available in the advert. Whilst Henry, my Fox Red Labrador, was not smuggled into the country, I met his mum and dad at their farm just above my North Devon home. I understand that the emotions of adopting a new pet and companion often leave some of the rationality in questioning behind. Prices for specific dog breeds doubled, and the UK market struggled to keep up. With huge profits to be made, this imbalance provided ample opportunity for people acting illegally and irresponsibly to import puppies and take advantage of innocent pet buyers who may not have known that their furry friends were suffering. UK polling shows that 83% of the public want the government to crack down on puppy smuggling. I was the PPS on the Bill Committee for the Animal Welfare Kept Animals Bill.
Oh, yes.
And I'm delighted to be flanked by the whip from the same committee, my honourable friend, the member for South Derbyshire, and other members of that Bill Committee still supporting this bill. We've seen over 100 colleagues drop in just this week to see the Dogs Trust to support the bill alone. When the bill was withdrawn and divided up, I made a commitment to the RSPCA and the Dogs Trust that if I came high up on the private members' bill ballot, I would take part of the original animal bill through. But not a regular raffle prize winner was more than a bit perplexed to find myself sixth. Looked at Henry, who I'm not sure still fully understands all the media attention, and explained that we were going to be helping puppies for many months to come. And I am delighted that I have been able to keep that commitment here today. As a dog owner myself, it is horrific to hear stories of puppies and kittens being smuggled across the border and the poor conditions they have to endure. Pets are more than just property, they are family, and the Animal Welfare, Importation of Dogs, Cats and Ferrets Bill will ensure that pets are not sold or traded as objects.
I'm grateful to her for giving way. This is such an important bill, and I know the passion and the eloquence with which she brings it forward. Does she agree with me that the government must put the funding at the border to make sure that this is actually dealt with and the puppy and kitten smuggling and indeed ferret smuggling is stopped? And it is a concern that currently DEFRA have reduced or proposed to reduce biosecurity funding at the Port of Dover and in the Dover area, and they must put money behind this important initiative.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way, and she's indeed a huge advocate for her constituency and the Port of Dover, and as a member of the EFRA Select Committee, we are indeed looking at some of the matters that she raises. This bill will deliver a manifesto commitment to crack down on puppy, kitten and ferret smuggling by closing loopholes exploited by unscrupulous commercial traders.
I'm really grateful for the Honourable Lady for giving way and for the passionate case she's making for a bill I think we all support. Her legislation relies quite extensively on regulations. I wonder if she has a sense of how quickly these regulations will come forward as and when, hopefully when the bill passes.
I thank the honourable gentleman for his intervention, and I very much hope the Minister will be able to provide some guidance on that at the end of this session. The bill will ban the import of puppies and kittens under 6 months and dogs and cats that are mutilated or heavily pregnant. It will also address the current abuse of non-commercial rules that compromise animal welfare and biosecurity by making it more difficult and less profitable for traders to fraudulently import animals for sale under the disguise of owners travelling with their own pets. The bill also seeks to address the current issue of commercial imports being disguised as non-commercial movements by amending the rules that govern the non-commercial movements of dogs, cats and ferrets into Great Britain from third countries. Currently, the puppy trade has become a multi-million transnational industry with UK sales of up to 2 million puppies annually and a value of £3 billion. However, 50% of the industry is either illegal or unlicensed and off the enforcement radar, and of that, half originates from animals coming from outside of the UK. According to the Animal and Plant Health Agency, in 2023, over 500 landings of dogs and cats were intercepted at the Port of Dover and found to be non-compliant with import requirements. Of these, 116 puppies and kittens were quarantined for being below the legally required minimum age for import. This data does not include animals detained at airports or found inland. We cannot know the true extent of puppy smuggling operations, and so these figures likely only capture a small portion of the animals smuggled into the country. Ferrets are included in this bill because dogs, cats and ferrets are in the same category when it comes to rabies risk. I have not had strong representations from the ferret community, but I would like to place my right honourable friend, the member for Banbury's ferret, on the record. The minister for the original bill, her gorgeous ferret Roulette, is no longer with us, but I know the now Attorney General has previously ensured so many of her much-loved pets are recorded in this place, and I'm delighted to remember Roulette today. So whilst not many ferrets have made my inbox, I have done much to support the work of our fantastic animal welfare charities on puppy and kitten smuggling, so we'll be focusing on their travel arrangements. Pet animals can be brought into the UK from EU member states through two different schemes. One is for travel of owners with pets and the other for the commercial import of pet animals. Under the EU Pet Travel Scheme, or PETS, vaccinated and microchipped dogs, cats and ferrets are allowed to travel between EU countries for non-commercial reasons, as long as they have a pet passport and have complied with all the requirements of the scheme, which includes a rabies vaccination. The current Pets Travel Scheme is designed to allow a maximum of 5 pets to travel with their owner, rather than for the commercial movement of animals intended for sale as pets. Under the scheme, pet owners must fill in a declaration confirming that they are not going to sell or transfer the ownership of the pet. An approved transport company must be used for the travel of pets unless travelling between the UK and Ireland, where a private boat or plane can be used. Whilst I understand that the Pet Travel Scheme was created to make it easy for owners to take their family pets on holiday with them, the system has been abused by unscrupulous traders. Traders have taken advantage of the scheme's simple setup to illegally import thousands of puppies for sale, making huge profit at the cost of welfare. The most common methods of attempting to smuggle puppies into Great Britain are by bringing puppies to Great Britain under the Pets Travel Scheme, when the puppies are in fact being imported for commercial sale and should instead be subject to the requirements of the Ballet Directive and Trade Animals and Related Products regulations. Most of all today, I would like to highlight the great work that the pet charities have done to raise this issue. The Dogs Trust exposed the cruel puppy smuggling trade in 2014 and has been pushing for changes to the law to help stop it ever since. The Dogs Trust Puppy Pilot Scheme was set up in 2015 to aid the interception of illegally imported puppies by AFA, the Animal and Plant Health Agency, at the ports, and provide care and rehabilitation for them until they find loving new homes. Since then, they have cared for more than 2,000 puppies.
Unbelievable.
As part of the Dogs Trust Puppy Smuggling Task Force, I first experienced the documentary and identity checks currently operating at the border. I saw for myself the tactics smugglers employ to avoid detection. I would like to thank the Dogs Trust for all their hard work campaigning on this issue and working with me on the progress of this bill through the roundtable and the event this Wednesday to discuss their recent Tragic Tales and the Decade of Delay campaign, which featured 4 real-life case studies of dogs who have been helped via the Puppy Pilot. A special thanks goes to my local Dogs Trust site in North Devon between Ilfracombe and Braunton, who do exceptional work to rehome dogs locally. I would also like to thank the RSPCA for their work on this issue and for their Pup's Sake campaign, especially during the pandemic when the interest in getting a puppy skyrocketed. The campaign called for the stop in illegal puppy imports and highlighted how these smuggled puppies can cost the owner more than they think. And on behalf of the fluffy furry kittens, I would like to thank Cats Protection, who have also published their 2023 Cats and Their Stats survey, which found that 3% of the cats that were obtained in the 12 months preceding the survey were from abroad, equating to 50,000 cats. And it is unclear what condition those cats were subjected to during travel. There have been significant changes in the cat market in the last 5 years, with a big rise in purebred and pedigree cats. Of the cats obtained in the last 12 months, 42% of them were pedigree and purebred cats, compared to 17% 5 years ago. It is likely that many of the imported cats are pedigree. Having had a cat myself whilst I was living overseas, I know that cats are extremely stressed by transportation over long distances, which in turn can suppress their immune systems, so their risk of infectious disease and other stress-related illness is markedly increased by importation. The vet charities such as the British Veterinary Association have also raised directly with me that a large number of smuggled puppies entering the UK poses significant threats to the UK's biosecurity. Whilst this is not in the scope of this bill, I hope that in raising it today, it is a first step and that the department will be taking these concerns forward.
Yeah.
Other charities such as Battersea Dogs and Cats Home, Four Paws, the Kennel Club have all done invaluable work to campaign on this issue, and I would like to thank them all today. Moving to the bill itself, the measures in the bill which will be enacted through primary legislation are Clause 4, to reduce the number of animals that can travel under non-commercial rules from 5 per person to 5 per vehicle, or 3 per foot or air passenger. I know the charities would have preferred 3 animals per vehicle, as their research shows that over 97% of pet owners have 3 or fewer dogs. However, this reduction is a significant and welcome step to tackle illegal smuggling of pets. The non-commercial rules are intended to make it easier for genuine pet owners to travel, but those unscrupulous traders fraudulently claim ownership of several pets that they are actually importing for sale. They do this because the requirements for owners travelling with pets are less stringent. The bill reduces the number of dogs, cats and ferrets that can be brought into Great Britain non-commercially, and reducing that number is considered proportionate and takes into consideration other pets owned by the household that may also travel. Clause 4, Article 5A, that ensures that when a non-commercial movement of a dog, cat or ferret is carried out by an authorised person, it may only take place within 5 days of the movement of the owner. There is evidence that the ability for a pet to travel with an authorised person under the non-commercial rules is being used as a loophole to bring in animals that should be moved under the commercial import regime, and therefore subject to more stringent requirements for sale or transfer of ownership. The new measures will ensure that pets are moved under the owner's direct responsibility, or where the pet animal cannot be moved at the same time as the owner under the responsibility of a person authorised by the owner and within 5 days of the movement of the owner. An authorised person is a person who has authorisation in writing from the owner to carry out the non-commercial movement of the pet animal on behalf of the owner. This will also ensure that only an owner of the pet can sign a declaration that a movement is non-commercial. This will stop non-commercial routes being used as a loophole by traders. And movements that are not within 5 days will require the dog, cat or ferret to be brought in as a commercial import rather than a non-commercial movement. Then the measures to be made in secondary legislation. The bill contains an enabling power to make regulations about the bringing of dogs, cats or ferrets into the United Kingdom for the purpose of promoting their welfare. The first regulations that can be made in relation to dogs and cats in Great Britain under this enabling power have been outlined on the face of the bill to provide reassurance of the government's intention to lay these measures through secondary legislation. The enabling powers provide the opportunity for government to gather further evidence and discuss the proposals with stakeholders and the public in order to develop these new restrictions effectively. The powers will enable the government to tackle low welfare imports dynamically. It will allow us the flexibility to address known issues quickly, but also act in the future to close down emerging practices, including those attempting to circumvent previous restrictions. The government will use this power alongside the other powers in the bill. Clause 1, subsections 3 and 4, Part A, introduces prohibitions which restrict the commercial import and non-commercial movement into Great Britain of puppies and kittens under 6 months. We are still seeing high volumes of smuggled puppies, dogs under 6 months which do not comply with current animal health rules and are landed in Great Britain for the purpose of commercial sale. as well as other low welfare movements and imports of pet animals. I understand concerns brought forward to me by the Kennel Club about genetic diversity and in some cases the need for rescue dogs that are brought into the country at the age of 4 months. However, the need for it to be a minimum age of 6 months is due to the practicalities of identifying an age of a dog or a cat that can come into the UK. This is because at 6 months old, the majority of puppies and kittens will have a full set of permanent incisors, canine and premolar teeth, and can therefore be aged more accurately. This will enable identification of puppies and kittens which are being moved at young ages and are thus at risk of low welfare. This prohibition would be intended to prevent the import of underage puppies and kittens by increasing the minimum age from 15 weeks to 6 months. To illustrate the importance of this, I want to talk about Bruce, who is available after today's sittings for photos, Mr. Speaker, in W3, if you would like to meet him. Bruce highlights the need for a ban on a minimum age of 6 months. A French bulldog who was seized at the border at just 10 weeks, alongside 3 of his siblings, who had all endured a journey in cramped and squalid conditions over thousands of miles from Bulgaria in 2018. This is well under the 15 weeks that puppies must be to legally enter the UK. Bruce and his siblings were found in poor condition, infested with worms, and were severely underweight when they were seized. All 4 of the dogs weighed roughly 2.8 kilograms, which is half the expected weight of French bulldogs at their age. Their passports were faked, with at least 3 of them claiming that they had been wormed before they were even born. The dishonest traders claimed that Bruce and his siblings were all their own pets. However, upon seizure, Dogs Trust staff were able to find evidence online of all 4 dogs being advertised for sale. Fortunately for Bruce, Dogs Trust were then able to take him in and care for him until he could find his forever home. Bruce has been now rehomed responsibly through the Dogs Trust. He's a very cute French bulldog. Some of these dogs are bred for fashion, and the Kennel Club, along with other animal charities and vets, have highlighted the health and welfare issues that can be associated with these breeds. And whilst the issues of breeding and flat-faced dogs are a genetic mutilation, and therefore not in the scope of the bill, I would like to highlight the need to still safeguard these dogs who are already in the country. We must look at what else we can do to help with these genetic mutilations that cause our pets to suffer. It was reassuring to hear at Crufts last week about their respiratory function grading RFG scheme for brachycephalic-faced dogs, such as French bulldogs, pugs and bulldogs. It was great to meet Dr. Jane Ludlow, who is the vet who has devised the scheme, which assesses dogs with a stethoscope. The dog exercises for 3 minutes and is then repeated. We saw the test firsthand, which is quick and straightforward, and assigns an RFG rating to each dog. Those with the lowest grades should not breed. Far too many flat-faced dogs have brachycephalic obstructive airway syndrome, known as BOAS, which can chronically impair the ability of the dog to breathe normally and carry out everyday tasks. All the dogs at Crufts had the option of being tested, which becomes compulsory next year, and those that win had all been tested to ensure that the breed standard remains with high health standards. I hope by highlighting this issue today, it will ensure more potential pet owners ask questions about the health of the parents of their future pet.
I'm really glad that she's brought this up, and I don't know if the honourable member has been to Battersea and seen the number of, Hansard please, brachycephalic dogs that are going to them because pet owners cannot afford to have the operation, and they have seen an exponential rise in these dogs being dumped. So does she agree that much more needs to be done?
I thank the Honourable Lady for her intervention, and I have indeed been to Battersea, which is what really triggered a lot of my interest in this particular area, because I, like her, was deeply shocked by what I saw, which is why it was such a relief to see at Crufts this new system come into effect, which really does give you the opportunity to find out if your dog is unwell, but ideally to find out before you've adopted as a puppy. Cats Protection have also highlighted the issue of underage kitten smuggling, with Nala, who was smuggled illegally into the country when she was around 8 weeks old. She had been with her owners for 8 days when they brought her into the UK from Germany without a pet passport and appropriate vaccinations. They became concerned for her health and took her to a vet who realised she had arrived without meeting the requirements of the pet travel scheme and reported the matter to trading standards. The pet travel scheme, or PETS, allows pet cats, along with dogs and ferrets, to enter the UK without quarantine, as long as they are microchipped, have a pet passport, a rabies vaccination, and have waited 21 days after the vaccination before travelling. In addition to having broken the terms of pets and facing prosecution, Nala's owners were also unable to pay the 7 weeks of quarantine, costs which came to £1,500, and so signed her over to feline welfare charity Cats Protection. The charity ensured the tiny cat was appropriately quarantined and received vet care before being taken into its Ferndown adoption centre. Despite being removed from her mother at around 7 weeks old, a week earlier than is advised, Nala was a lively, energetic kitten and a suitable home was found for her. Back to the bill, and Clause 1, subsection 3 and 4, Part B, introduces prohibitions which restrict the commercial import and non-commercial movement into Great Britain of heavily pregnant dogs and cats that are more than 42 days pregnant. There is an emerging trend in the import of pregnant dogs, but strong consensus to tackle this, with Dogs Trust polling showing 79% support a ban on the import of heavily pregnant dogs. This prohibition is intended to ensure the welfare of pregnant dogs and cats by lowering the gestation limit to prohibit the movement into Great Britain from a third party of dogs and cats who are pregnant for more than 42 days. This is within the final third of the gestation. This aligns with clear markers in pregnancy, and therefore pregnant dogs and cats under this limit can be more easily identified. In addition, we expect that traders will respond to an increase in the minimum age for importing puppies and kittens by increasing the number of pregnant dogs and cats that they import. This measure is needed to prevent this anticipated increase in imports of low welfare dogs and cats from producers with unacceptable welfare standards. The tragic case of Snowy, the heavily pregnant Bichon Maltese, shows how important this measure is in the bill. Snowy was seized at the port of Dover in May 2023 after being illegally transported into the UK. Before she was intercepted, Snowy had travelled to the UK from an EU country. Snowy was 56 days pregnant when she was seized, in the final 10% of her pregnancy when it is illegal to transport dogs. Just days after she was seized, and despite her ordeal, Snowy gave birth to 4 healthy puppies, and Snowy and her puppies have all been responsibly rehomed through the Dogs Trust. The disturbing trend of transporting heavily pregnant dogs into the country in the later stages of pregnancy causes significant suffering and health implications to both mum and puppies. Not only will importing one dog attract less suspicion at the border, but as responsible buyers will ask to see the puppies with their mother, this tactic allows criminals to give the impression of being legitimate breeders and avoid being reported to trading standards. Clause 1, subsection 3 and 4, Part C, introduces prohibitions which restrict the commercial import and non-commercial movement into Great Britain of dogs and cats, with non-exempted mutilations, for example, dogs with cropped ears or dock-tailed and declawed cats. From my previous meetings with pet charities, there is a clear consensus among the charities on banning dogs and cats with cropped ears and the declawing of cats. There is a need for this to be included in the bill, and I am delighted that this has been taken forward. The attended approach on the prohibition of mutilated animals is set out in further detail within the DEFRA consultation, commercial and non-commercial movements of pets into Great Britain. The summary of responses and government response to this consultation are due to be published in due course, and I am very much looking forward to seeing the consultation response. The ban on cropped ears mutilations would have helped Maisie. 6-year-old Maisie came into RSPCA care in October 2023 due to welfare concerns. She was incredibly malnourished and underweight. She's a sweet and gentle girl who absolutely loves playing with a football, chasing tennis balls and eating sausages. She arrived in RSPCA care with a dock tail and cropped ears. She has a passport from overseas, so the RSPCA believes she's been imported, having already been cropped and docked. Unfortunately, it is not just dogs that are mutilated. Many kittens are subjected to declawing, an extremely painful and distressing procedure that prevents cats from exhibiting normal scratching behaviour. The procedure is the equivalent of amputating a human fingertip at the first knuckle. Whilst it is already illegal for cats to be declawed in the UK, Cats Protection, RSPCA and Battersea have been campaigning hard to ensure that these cats with this mutilation are included in the bill and banned from importation. This is both to deter any market or interest in declawed cats and keep in line with the UK, ensuring the highest standards of cat welfare are consistently maintained. The PDSA Animal Wellbeing Report 2022 states that alarmingly 5% of cat owners who got their cat from abroad, equating to 31,000 cats, told us that they chose to get their pet from abroad because they wanted them to be declawed. Clause 1, subsection 2b delivers relevant exemptions to the prohibitions, for example, recognised assistance dogs or military service and working animals. The enforcement measures and exemptions for the bill will be delivered through secondary legislation. As with the exemptions delivering the enforcement measures through secondary legislation, it will enable us to work closely with enforcement bodies to develop guidance and ensure they have the correct tools to deliver these measures effectively.
I thank the Honourable Lady for giving way, and I commend her for bringing this bill forward. She will know, as with so much legislation we pass in this place, that it is only ever as effective as the enforcement that follows from it. And a 2014 Dogs Trust investigation found that 2 of the authorities involved in enforcing breaches of existing regulations in this area, namely the Animal and Plant Health Agency and Trading Standards, had no officers on active duty at ports of entry over weekends. So, as well as passing this welcome piece of legislation, does she agree that we need assurances from the Minister about resourcing and capacity of these agencies to ensure it is properly enforced when it comes into active force?
I thank the gentleman for his intervention, and yes, whilst I do agree we need to ensure the enforcement is there, as I said to my honourable friend from Dover, I also believe there is an opportunity in the House today to highlight the need to educate those people who are about to adopt a puppy or a kitten to be asking those questions, because if we don't adopt those animals that are being illegally imported, the trade in itself will dry up. So yes, I agree, but I do also think there is an opportunity here today to actually extend the knowledge that there's so much I've learned on the course of this bill about the process of adopting. So the reason why the measures outlined are being enacted through secondary legislation is really to refine the scope and detail of the policy and take on board the views of the public and key stakeholders. The bill provides that prohibitions must be enacted the first time, and the enabling power is used in relation to dogs and cats in Great Britain to show commitment to delivering these measures. I have been assured by the Department, who I would also like to thank for their help to getting to this point today, that they will lay secondary legislation as soon as possible following royal assent of the bill, and DEFRA officials are working on developing secondary legislation already. This will allow for future-proofing of the bill to respond dynamically to smuggling practices. As with the nature of organised crime, the illegal pet trade is unpredictable and ever-changing. These enabling powers will ensure the government can tackle low welfare imports dynamically. They provide the flexibility to address known issues quickly, but also act in the future to close down emergency practices where people are trying to circumvent previous restrictions. Finally, setting out how this will be applied as a GB-wide bill and the extent and application involving the devolved administration, Clause 3 sets out the meaning of appropriate national authority regarding devolved administrations. Clause 8 sets out the territorial extent of the bill, which describes the jurisdictions in which the bill forms part of the law. The territorial extent and application of the bill is England and Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland, except for clauses 4, 5 and 6, which extend and apply only to England, Wales and Scotland. The bill relates to animal welfare, which is a devolved matter in Scotland and Wales, including in relation to the regulation of movements of animals in Scotland or Wales for the purposes of protecting animal welfare. As regards Northern Ireland, animal welfare is generally a transferred matter, but the subject matter of this bill means that the reserved matter in paragraph 20 of Schedule 3 to the Northern Ireland Act 1998 is engaged. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank my DUP colleagues from Strangford and East Antrim who are unable to join us today, but they have written to support this bill.
Excellent speech this morning about this really important bill, which I fully support, and it's good to see that coming forward. And she's outlined we're still waiting for consultation response from the government and other aspects, but would she agree with me that it really is deeply disappointing that the government dropped their animal welfare bill to look at these issues in the round more carefully, and that actually we do need to see more greater action from the government on the whole area of animal welfare? Even though this will help, we need to see more.
Coming through, so no.
This government has done more for animal welfare than any previous one, and we will continue to do so. And like everyone, we were disappointed to see the bill collapse, but that was obviously due to amendments that were actually changing the nature of that original bill. And I very much hope and welcome the cross-party support to get this section of the bill through today. The amendments to the non-commercial pet travel scheme rules and related measures, which include the maximum number of dogs, cats and ferrets that can be moved into Great Britain and occur within 5 days of the owner's movements, will extend to England, Wales and Scotland. The bill does not apply to the domestic movement of dogs, cats and ferrets within our United Kingdom, so travel between Northern Ireland and Great Britain will not be affected. I know that there are many colleagues and friends in the chamber here to support this bill today, and many may think that we have not gone far enough. But we need to be pragmatic with the measures in this bill, and we don't want perfection to be the enemy of the good.
Right.
I believe that this bill as it stands will do a lot to safeguard the welfare of the thousands of puppies, cats and ferrets that come into Great Britain from overseas each year. It will also prevent the heartache and unexpected costs to families who unknowingly buy young and ill pets that often come with hidden health conditions. The measures I have outlined today will aim to make vast animal welfare improvements to the current pet import rules. With secondary legislation, it will go further than the Kept Animals Bill to ensure that loopholes are tightened. I would like to again thank all the charities and interested groups who have shared their views about this bill, and I really hope that this bill has met some of the expectations and illustrated the positive steps that we are taking to stop this cruel trade. We really are a nation of animal lovers, a parliament of pet lovers, and this legislation will ensure that the UK is leading the world when it comes to animal welfare.